Have you ever stopped to think that maybe you're not lonely? Maybe you're just too connected? Look at the irony. We live in the most connected era in human history, yet we've never felt so isolated. You have hundreds, maybe thousands of friends on Facebook, followers on Instagram, contacts on WhatsApp. But when was the last time you felt a genuine connection? When was the last time you sat in silence with yourself without feeling that anxiety rising in your throat? Imagine a prisoner in a cell. He has a small window through which he can see other prisoners in their cells. He can wave, shout, even exchange a few words. Day after day, he focuses on this window, on this superficial connection with others. But he never realizes that the door to his cell was unlocked the entire time. This is our digital reality. We are that prisoner, and our cell phone is that small window. We are mesmerized by the illusion of connection, but we have completely lost the key to true freedom. There's a German philosopher who lived through one of the darkest times in human history, who understood the difference between being alone and being lonely better than anyone. Hannah Arendt not only survived forced isolation, she discovered in it a source of power that few people know. Today, you'll discover not only why digital loneliness is a prison disguised as freedom, but how to transform this solitude into a tool for self-knowledge and inner strength. By the end of this video, you will have a clear map to distinguish between destructive loneliness and chosen solitude, the kind that great thinkers used to build ideas that change the world. If you feel it's time to stop being a hostage to this feeling and you want to discover the strength that great thinkers can offer you, know that this channel is your refuge. Subscribe now and turn on notifications, because the journey we're starting today is just the first step. Let's start by destroying a lie everyone believes, that being connected means you're not lonely. Hannah Arendt made a brilliant distinction between three fundamental states of human existence: isolation, solitude, and desolation. And this is where our digital age gets completely lost. Isolation is when you are physically alone, but still feel connected to the world and to yourself. It's you in a library studying. It's you walking alone thinking about life. It is productive. It is creative. Solitude is when you are alone, but in your own company. It's that moment when you don't need anyone to feel complete. It's when you can have an interesting conversation with just your own thoughts. Desolation is when you completely lose your connection with yourself and with the world. It's when you can't stand being alone for 5 minutes without picking up your phone. Now tell me something. When you're endlessly scrolling on Instagram, looking at others' perfect lives, in which of these three states are you? You're not productively isolated. You're not in reflective solitude. You're in digital desolation. You're running away from yourself through the illusion of connection. The problem isn't that you're alone. The problem is that you don't know how to be alone. Hannah Arendt grew up in a time when people were forced into isolation by totalitarian regimes. And she realized something frightening. Most people preferred any kind of distraction, even lying propaganda, to being alone with their own thoughts. Do you know what that means? It means the fear of being alone is not new. But today, our technology has turned this fear into a constant, automatic escape. Think about the last day you were completely offline. No cell phone, no internet, nothing. How long did you last before you felt that anxiety, that mental itch? That itch isn't boredom. That is the fear of meeting the person you really are when you take off all the masks, all the filters, all the distractions. Arendt said that solitude is the space where original thought is born. It's where you stop being an echo of others' opinions and start forming your own ideas. But for that to happen, you need to learn to endure the inner silence. And that's scary, because in the silence, you hear not only your dreams, but also your fears. Not just your qualities, but also your flaws. Our digital age has offered an easy way out, never having to face this encounter with yourself. But this way out is a trap. Here comes one of Hannah Arendt's most disturbing discoveries. You can be surrounded by thousands of people and still be completely alone. More than that, sometimes the crowd is exactly what causes loneliness. Think of any social network. You have hundreds of friends, but how many of them really know you? How many know what you're truly going through, not just what you post? Arendt called this the mass society. It's when you are a part of a gigantic group, but your individuality completely disappears. You become just another number, another profile, another like. And the worst part, in this digital mass society, you start to see yourself through the eyes of others. Your self-esteem depends on likes. Your happiness depends on comments. Your identity depends on the approval of people who don't even truly know you. This isn't connection. This is collective emotional dependence. Arendt had an incredible phrase. The ideal of conformity of mass society is dangerously close to the totalitarian ideal. Translated, when you live seeking the approval of the masses, you lose your ability to think for yourself. Look at the vicious cycle. You feel lonely, so you seek digital approval. But this approval is superficial. So you feel even lonelier, so you seek even more approval, and so on. The only way out is to break this cycle. And to break it, you need to learn to be your own company. Here's the secret no one tells you. All the great thinkers, artists, and innovators in history had one thing in common. They weren't afraid to be alone. Hannah Arendt wrote her most important works during periods of isolation. Einstein developed the theory of relativity on long, solitary walks. Virginia Woolf said she needed a room of her own to create. But it's not just about creativity, it's about mental sanity. When you learn to be okay in your own company, you stop depending on external validation to feel good. You stop being afraid of silence. You stop filling every free second with distractions. Arendt called this the vita contemplativa, the contemplative life. It's when you develop the ability to reflect deeply on your own experience. Do you know the difference between you and someone who has mastered creative solitude? The person who has mastered creative solitude has interesting conversations with themselves. They are curious about their own thoughts. They enjoy their own company. Meanwhile, the person who fears solitude constantly needs external stimuli. They need music, videos, conversations, anything that pushes away the silence. But look, I'm not saying you should become a hermit. I'm saying you should be able to choose when to be alone and when to be with others. Freedom is in the choice, not the dependence. One of Hannah Arendt's most revolutionary ideas is that thinking is literally having a conversation with yourself. It's not just processing information, it's dialoguing internally. When you really think, you ask yourself questions and try to answer them. You challenge your own ideas. You explore possibilities. It's as if there are two people inside your head having a fascinating conversation. But for that to happen, you need mental silence. And mental silence doesn't exist when you're constantly bombarded with external information. Think of it this way. Imagine you're trying to have a deep conversation with a friend, but every 30 seconds someone interrupts you with a random question, a joke, a funny video. Can you have a real conversation like that? That's exactly what happens in your mind when you live connected all the time. You can never develop a deep line of thought because there's always a notification, a stimulus, a distraction interrupting you. Arendt found that periods of solitude were essential for her to develop her most complex ideas. It was in the silence that she could connect seemingly unrelated concepts and reach revolutionary insights. Here's a practical exercise. Tomorrow, when you wake up, instead of immediately picking up your phone, spend 10 minutes just thinking. Don't force any thoughts, just let your mind wander. You'll be surprised at what emerges. Hannah Arendt made a fundamental distinction that can completely change how you see solitude. There is a difference between being alone by choice and being abandoned by circumstances. When you are alone by choice, you are in command. You've decided you need this time to reflect, to rest, to create. It's a conscious and powerful decision. When you feel abandoned, you are a victim of circumstances. People have left you, no one called you, you have no one to talk to. Loneliness becomes suffering. Now, here's the revolutionary insight. Digital loneliness is always of the second type. Even when you choose to stay home scrolling on your phone, you are not choosing to be alone. You are trying to escape from being alone. That's why digital loneliness is never satisfying. You spend hours on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, but you still feel empty because you're not really alone, but you're also not truly connected. Arendt would say, you're in limbo. You neither enjoy the benefits of creative solitude nor the benefits of genuine connection. The solution is radical. You need to learn to consciously choose to be alone, without a phone, without distractions, just you and your thoughts. In the beginning, it will be uncomfortable, but with time, you'll discover that there's a very interesting person living inside your head. One of Hannah Arendt's obsessions was to understand how people become dependent on the approval of others. And she came to a frightening conclusion. When you constantly need external validation, you lose your ability to have your own opinions. On social media, this is crystal clear. You post a photo and keep checking how many likes it got. You share an opinion and become anxious for the comments. Your self-esteem fluctuates based on the reactions of others. But Arendt went further. She realized that this need for approval isn't just superficial. It destroys your capacity for independent thought. Because when you're always worried about others' reactions, you never develop your own ideas. Do you know why? Because having your own ideas is risky. Your ideas can be rejected, criticized, misunderstood. It's much safer to just echo what everyone else is already saying. But here's the problem. When you live by echoing others, you never discover who you really are. You become a character playing a role based on what you think others want to see. Creative solitude breaks this cycle. When you are alone, there is no audience. There's no one to impress. You can think forbidden thoughts, question popular ideas, explore possibilities you would never dare to express publicly. It's in this mental freedom that authenticity is born. Hannah Arendt had a counterintuitive view on boredom. For her, boredom was not a bad thing to be avoided. It was the cradle of creativity. Think about it. When you're bored, your mind is free to wander. That's when you start making unusual connections. questioning things you've always taken for granted, and imagining possibilities you never considered. But our digital age has completely eliminated boredom. At the first sign that nothing interesting is happening, we grab our phones, we scroll, we watch, we consume. We never let our minds truly be unoccupied. And then we lose something precious, the ability to create internal entertainment. Arendt observed that the most creative and reflective people were those who could transform seemingly empty moments into opportunities for inner discovery. Here's a radical exercise. The next time you feel bored, instead of picking up your phone, sit with the boredom. Let it exist. Observe what thoughts arise when you have no external stimuli. At first, it will be uncomfortable. You will feel anxiety and urgency to do something. But if you resist that urgency, something magical happens. Your mind begins to create its own entertainment. You start to have ideas, to solve problems that were bothering you, to make plans, to understand things about yourself. Boredom transforms into discovery. One of Hannah Arendt's great questions was, how do you discover who you really are amidst all the social pressures to be someone you are not? And she came to a radical conclusion. You only discover your authenticity in silence, far from the gaze and expectations of others. Think about it. When you're alone, truly alone, with no audience to impress, what version of yourself appears? Are you more relaxed, more creative, more honest, more vulnerable? This version that appears in the silence is your most authentic version. It's who you are when you don't have to wear any social masks. But in the digital age, we rarely have access to this authentic version. We are constantly performing for social media, for colleagues on Zoom, for strangers in the elevator looking at our phones. Arendt said that this constant performance creates an identity crisis. You spend so much time being who you think you should be that you completely forget who you really are. The solution isn't complicated, but it is challenging. You need to create regular spaces of genuine silence in your life. Not silence while listening to music, not silence while watching TV. Absolute silence, where the only company you have is yourself. In these moments, pay attention to the thoughts that arise spontaneously, the memories that come to the surface, the dreams you had forgotten, the real concerns, not the ones you think you should have. This is your internal compass. It's what will guide you to a more authentic life. Hannah Arendt lived her whole life as an outsider. She was Jewish in an anti-Semitic era. She was an intellectual in an age that devalued thought. She was a woman in a male-dominated field. And she found that this position of not belonging was, in fact, an advantage. When you don't fit perfectly into any group, you develop a unique perspective. You see things that those on the inside cannot. You question things that those who are comfortable automatically accept. In the digital age, this is more relevant than ever. Social media creates bubbles, groups of people who think alike, who consume the same information, who mutually validate their opinions. And when you live in a bubble, you stop growing intellectually. You stop questioning your own ideas. You become comfortable, but you also become stagnant. Arendt would say that creative solitude gives you the courage to step out of the bubble. When you're not afraid to be alone, you're also not afraid to have opinions that go against the grain. You develop what she called independent critical thinking. You don't accept ideas just because they are popular. You don't reject ideas just because they are unpopular. You analyze each concept on its own merits. This is liberating, but it's also lonely. Because when you think for yourself, sometimes you reach conclusions that no one around you shares. But Arendt would say, it's better to be alone with your own ideas than to be surrounded by people echoing thoughts that are not your own. For Hannah Arendt, there's a gigantic difference between thinking about something and reflecting deeply. Deep reflection only happens when you have the time and mental space to truly explore an idea. Think about the difference. When you think about what you're going to eat for dinner, you use a quick, practical type of thought. But when you reflect on the meaning of your life, you need a completely different type of mental process. Deep reflection is slow, it's non-linear, it's contemplative. It's like a long, meandering conversation with a wise friend, except that friend is yourself. But deep reflection needs specific conditions to happen: silence, free time, and the absence of urgent distractions. The digital age has destroyed these three conditions. We don't have silence because there's always some sound, some notification, something grabbing our attention. We don't have free time because we fill every second with some activity. And there's always some digital urgency, a message to reply to, an email to read, a video to watch. The result? We have completely lost the ability to reflect deeply on our own lives. We live on autopilot, reacting to external stimuli, but we never stop to question if the path we're taking makes sense. Arendt said that this loss of the reflective capacity is one of the greatest tragedies of modernity, because it's in deep reflection that you find purpose, direction, and wisdom. Here's a transformative exercise. Choose a problem that's bothering you. Instead of looking for the solution on Google or asking someone, dedicate 30 minutes to reflecting deeply on this problem. No phone, no distractions, just you and the problem. You will be surprised by the solutions your own mind is capable of generating. We've arrived at the final and most powerful concept of Hannah Arendt's philosophy for our era. Solitude is not a prison, it's the path to true freedom. But not just any kind of freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be who you truly are. Arendt distinguished between two types of freedom: negative freedom and positive freedom. Negative freedom is the absence of external obstacles. It's being able to do what you want without anyone stopping you. The digital age has given us a lot of negative freedom. You can access any information, talk to anyone, go anywhere, virtual. But positive freedom is different. It's the ability to act based on your own values, to make conscious decisions, to live a life that genuinely makes sense to you. And positive freedom only develops in creative solitude, because it's only when you're alone that you can truly hear your inner voice, identify your true values, and understand what really matters to you. The irony of the digital age is that it has given us a lot of negative freedom, but it has destroyed our positive freedom. We can do 1,000 different things, but we no longer know what we truly want to do. We can connect with millions of people, but we've lost the connection with ourselves. We can access infinite information, but we've lost the wisdom that comes from personal reflection. Arendt's proposal is revolutionary. To regain your positive freedom, you need to reconnect with creative solitude. Here is a practical guide you can start implementing today. First step: every day, dedicate 10 minutes to being completely alone, without any distractions. It's not meditation, it's not relaxation. It's just you being conscious of your own company. Second step, once a week, do a 2-hour digital detox. Turn everything off and use that time to think about your life, your goals, your concerns. Third step, every month, dedicate an entire day to what aren't called the vita contemplativa. Read, reflect, write about your thoughts. Reconnect with who you are when no one is watching. With this tool in hand, we are ready to look at our modern life in a new and powerful light. We've reached the end of a journey that started with you feeling isolated in a hyper-connected era and ends with you understanding that the truest connection, the most important of all, is the connection with yourself. Hannah Arendt taught us that solitude is not the opposite of connection. Solitude is the foundation of all genuine connections. Because only when you know who you are, only when you are comfortable in your own company, can you offer something authentic to others. The digital age did not create loneliness. It revealed our inability to deal with it, and it offered a false solution, the illusion of constant connection that actually leaves us even emptier. But now, you have a different tool. You understand that there's a fundamental difference between being alone and being lonely, between creative isolation and digital desolation, between choosing silence and fearing it. Look at where you were when we started this conversation and where you are now. You came here thinking the problem was being lonely. You leave knowing the problem was not knowing how to be alone. You came in thinking the solution was more digital connection. You leave understanding that the solution is more connection with yourself. You came in afraid of silence. You leave knowing that silence is where your strength resides. This doesn't mean you should become a hermit. It means you should become someone who consciously chooses when to be alone and when to be with others. Someone who doesn't depend on external validation to feel good. Someone who has interesting conversations with themselves. When you master the art of creative solitude, you stop being a hostage to others' opinions. You stop needing constant approval. You stop being afraid of your own thoughts. And then, something magical happens. Your connections with other people become deeper, because now you have something genuine to offer. You are no longer seeking in others what you should be seeking in yourself. From today on, every time you feel that familiar anxiety of digital loneliness, remember, you have a choice. You can pick up your phone and continue running away from yourself, or you can see this anxiety as an invitation. An invitation to get to know the most important person in your life, you. Philosophy is not a set of dead words in old books. It is a weapon for life. What we've seen today is just one of many tools we can use to sculpt an existence with more purpose and serenity. If this message resonated with you and you want to continue on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment, do your part. Subscribe to the channel and join our community of thinkers. The next video may hold the key to your next great challenge.